Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a name that's made headlines across the country. Since birth, her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, had made claims about her daughter's health that resulted in dire diagnoses, multiple surgeries, and a litany of medications. With muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, and cancer, Gypsy was left paralyzed, in a wheelchair, and dependent on a feeding tube. However, things are not always what they seem. Gypsy actually wasn't unwell. The truth only came out when Gypsy arranged to have her online boyfriend kill her mother in June of 2015. But why? That's the question. Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the episode 28 of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I am Blake Smith, and as always, I have my partners in the paranormal, well, true crime tonight, Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts.
Hello.
How are y'all doing? Y'all doing good?
Great.
I'm ready to talk about this chick.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to talk about
goodness.
this chick
true crime. True crime. That's one of my things that I love. And this story, we did a little talking about it on the phone. To say I'm passionate about this story is a little bit of an understatement. I'm sure there's going to be some people who don't like my opinions by the time this is all over.
It's about to get wild, y'all. Y'all don't even know.
It is.
There's probably going to be a few debates because there were some debates on the phone when we were discussing this. So.
Yep. And I will say, this is one that if you haven't heard of this story, it is actually fairly recent. Within the last 10 years, that's for sure. So if you just didn't catch the news stories or anything like that, oh my goodness, buckle up and be ready.
And now, Brian, this was one that you were unfamiliar with, correct?
I knew just a little bit about it, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. And I don't know how this one didn't blip on my radar, but
I have no idea how you missed this one.
Yeah.
And if you missed it, Blake is going to tell you all about it.
I got all the deets for you tonight.
Oh man, I'm ready.
Let's just jump into this. We're gonna be chatting about this.
Yeah, we are. Okay, so this story is actually going to start on June 14th of 2015. And that is just any regular Sunday afternoon. You know, people are getting home from after church activities, hanging out with friends, eating, and having a good time. And two of these individuals were Kim and Dave Blanchard, who lived down the road from Gypsy and Dee Dee Blanchard. No relation. They just happen to be friends and neighbors. So I want to point that out. And Dee Dee and Gypsy were this mother-daughter duo who were considered by many in the community the idyllic mother-daughter relationship. Gypsy was a young teen girl who was confined to a wheelchair. She couldn't walk. She had muscular dystrophy, leukemia, seizures, fed with a feeding tube. I mean, there was a litany of things. By the way, I love the word litany, so I'm probably going to be using it a couple times tonight. Anyways, a litany of ailments that she suffered from. And Dee Dee was this devoted and very strong-willed single
mother.
Yes, doting single mother, might I add, who basically left others speechless with her unwavering love and loyalty for her sick child. And these two really did seem to have like the perfect mother-daughter relationship. So at 2:40 that afternoon on June 14th of 2015, Kim Blanchard is scrolling through Facebook, and she happens across a post from the shared Facebook profile of Dee Dee and Gypsy that's called Dee Blanchard, which, by the way, is still up. It's memorialized. It is still there. Yep. And the post read, "The bitch is dead."
So they left that particular post up there?
Yes, they did.
It's just sitting. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it is just sitting there. So you can actually go back and read all the comments as they came through. So a couple of people jumped on there as that was posted and was like, what's going on? Is everything okay? Some people thought they were like watching a movie and commenting about the movie. And it wasn't. And Kim kind of thought the same thing until later, a little bit down the thread, a comment, and this is very vulgar and graphic, but I am going to go ahead and read it, came on that said, and I quote, "I fucking slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. LOL." Now this completely alarmed everybody because this was not Dee Dee or Gypsy or how they talked or anything like that. So everybody started figuring out how to get over there. And I was like, Kim and Dave Blanchard, again, no relation, that lived down the road, decided we're going to go over there. So they continued to try and call Dee Dee's phone, no answer. They end up calling the police, as well as other friends and neighbors do a wellness check. They get over there. They're not the only ones over there, but they are knocking on windows, knocking on doors, calling out to Dee Dee. No answer, nothing. They're looking everywhere that they can.
The car is in the driveway, by the way.
The car is in the driveway, which is shocking to them as well. And then it kind of comes to light that nobody's really heard from them in about the last 4 days. Well, the police show up and they're like, look, there's no signs of forced entry. There's no signs that we can say, you know, something's happened here that we can just barge into the house. He's like, so unfortunately, we can't do that. And Dave was like, you know what? When we were looking around, the kitchen window was left unlocked. I checked it. It is unlocked, but it didn't go in. Do you mind if I just go in? Police go, yeah, go ahead. Go for it. So he crawls in through the window and he gets inside. And he actually has said in interviews, I didn't really notice anything that was out of the ordinary. He said, the first thing that I did notice was that it was really cold. It was like the air conditioner had been turned way down and it had ran all night. He looked around. He noticed 2 of Gypsy's wheelchairs in the living room. He noticed the electric wheelchair in the bathroom. So that was a red flag to him. That's all 3 wheelchairs she had. He looked in her room.
Because she couldn't walk.
She couldn't. She was paralyzed from the waist down, muscular dystrophy, all this kind of other crazy stuff that
and
left her wheelchair bound.
And her 3 wheelchairs are sitting there. So where could she be?
Yeah. And so he looks into her room, just sees an unmade bed, nothing out of the ordinary. And he opens the door to Dee Dee's room. He flips on the light and very quickly, just briefly peers in, sees about the half end foot of the bed with a bunch of blankets on it, unmade, doesn't think anything of it. And he walks out the room. He wraps up his searching and he goes back out and he tells the police, I didn't see anything. However, all 3 wheelchairs are here and this girl can't walk and she is wheelchair bound. She's on all this medication. This is everything that's wrong with her. And that's really kind of what panicked everybody. So
it's a child in danger.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the search was on from there. News story broke that night that basically a mother and a daughter are missing. Their lives are considered in danger. Excuse me. And thinking that the police had it under control, Kim and Dave were like, okay, we're going to go back to our house. I'm like, deuce out. But anyways, and around 1 a.m. on June 15th, now we're into the wee hours mornings of the next day, there is the police enter the house because they finally get the warrant to be able to go in. And a detective heads over to Gypsy's best friend's house at this time. Her name is Aaliyah Woodmansey. And he heads over there and starts asking her about the mother-daughter duo, you know, Dee Dee and Gypsy. Like, what are they like? Da, da, da. She basically tells him there's nothing crazy between them. They're very, very close. You know, nothing that I would think of would be going on. And it's at this time the detective gets a phone call and he answers it. And he's informed that they have found Dee Dee. And Dee Dee is actually dead in her bed.
Oh, shit.
And I am actually going to show pictures of the crime scene. This is your graphic imagery warning that is coming up right now. They actually find Dee Dee in her bed. She has been stabbed 17 times and the back of her neck has been slashed. And she has been there the whole time. And it's now basically not so much a missing mother and child. It is now a homicide. And this girl who is dependent on so much stuff is now missing and is very much in danger.
Were they under, did they think at first that this was like a forced entry and kidnapping situation, or?
What they initially thought was that it was some random attacker.
Okay.
That's what they thought. It had to be a random attacker. Nothing really made sense. Nothing really added up. Because Dee Dee was a very private person. She other than obviously some of the spotlight things that we're going to talk about later on, she was very private. She kind of kept a lot of things hidden. She didn't open up about a lot of things. So they did think that it was just some random attack, some mystery of unfortunate luck, I guess you could say. So this news breaks. Dee Dee's dead in bed. Dave Blanchard, that was there, walked through the house, wakes up the next morning. He sees the breaking news. Dee Dee is dead. And he's like, how the F did I miss this? But he realized I only quickly peered into her room. I didn't actually walk in. I only just kind of stood at the doorway and looked. And in some of the photos, if you stand at the doorway, there's a wall that's blocking his field of vision from about 3/4 of the bed down towards the headboard. So he didn't see anything.
And he really didn't know what kind of housekeeper she was, because there weren't a lot of people that were allowed into her home. And so it wasn't a place that people came in and out of. It wasn't
Correct.
like the local gathering spot. She went to many people's houses, but not many people came to hers. And he had already seen Gypsy's bed unmade. And so if you see one bed unmade, perhaps they all are usually unmade. And he didn't think much about it.
Yeah. And he quickly peered in and just backed out of the room. And he did not actually step in far enough to be able to see the crime scene. That's why she wasn't spotted at that time. And so the community is a wreck. Obviously, they're immediately on the alert for Gypsy. They start actually setting up GoFundMes and stuff like that for like Dee Dee's and possibly Gypsy's funeral costs at this point. Because if the mother's dead, the daughter's been kidnapped, God knows what's going to happen to the daughter. So we might as well kind of get ahead of it.
You got a kid that can't walk, that somebody, if they've taken her, is having to drag her around. They're going to get real tired of that real fast. They were presuming that she was probably already deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they were. And not only that, I mean, she's so
reliant on her medication.
I was going to say reliant on her medication that any type of missed dosage could be lethal for her. And so Aaliyah, her friend that I showed her, I'll show her again. Aaliyah started thinking, she's like, wait a minute. She's like, I've got these weird messages from Gypsy not too long ago, actually. And she contacts the detective and gets connected with him and says, hey, I've got these messages between me and Gypsy that were exchanged not too long ago. Maybe they have a clue. Maybe they, she actually says in interviews, I did not know how important these messages were going to come into play until I handed them over.
She was just trying to help. She thought, hey, this is all I know about it. You're welcome to read it.
Yeah. And that conversation, I'll read it to you just real quick. The messages exchanged were, it says, Gypsy, hey girl, I need some sister advice. Gypsy, I don't know how to kiss, LOL. Aaliyah, how are you? I've missed you. Gypsy, I've met a wonderful guy. Nick, my boyfriend, is 24. We met on a Christian single site. He is amazing. He is my soulmate. Really, truly, he is. He gives me poems. He's so romantic. He lives in Wisconsin, though, so it's a long-distance relationship. We want a snow wedding in a gazebo with red and white roses, and we even plan children's name. If we have a son, he will be named after Nick. So Nicholas Paul go to John II. In March, Nick and I planned a meeting. We're going to go see the upcoming Cinderella movie, and I'll get my very first kiss. To which Aaliyah replies to all this, play it safe. There are terrible people out there, and a lot of the times, guys aren't who they think they are. Gypsy responds by saying, I'm going to be introducing him to my mom in March, so my mom still doesn't want me dating, but I'm hoping all will go well in March and she approves of him. And a couple of things to remember with all this. I know, it's already sketch. I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard not to ruin your story right now, Blake. Go ahead.
I know. Don't ruin it. There's some who don't know this story. A couple things to remember here. Gypsy wasn't supposed to be on the internet. That was like a no-no. I mean, she had an intellectual developmental disability that Dee Dee she just didn't want her daughter to be taken advantage of, basically. She was also
shared a Facebook page.
Yeah, they shared a Facebook page. So every piece of communication on the internet and through Facebook went through Dee Dee. She wasn't allowed to have boyfriends either. Friends were okay, but boyfriends were absolutely like out of the question.
And she was only 15.
She was only 15. So him being 24, obviously, with a minor of 15, and also having an intellectual developmental disability, her mind was even further behind her than her age. And Aaliyah didn't think much of these conversations because Nicholas lived in Wisconsin, and nothing's ever going to come of it.
Yeah, it's just girls chatting.
It's a little girly fantasy. We've already decided our wedding, and we know what our kids are going to be named. It's what every teenage girl does. I'm going to write his name on my notebook 500 times and put the love, and I'm going to be Mrs. Da 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 da.
Yes,
every teenage girl does that.
Very much that. And Aaliyah figured her mom had control over it, so there wasn't much to worry about. Now, with these messages in hand, the Greene County Sheriff's Department decided to end up tracing the IP address of the shocking Facebook post and found it actually originated 8.5 hours north in a residential area of Big Bend. You guessed it, Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
Lights start going off. Okay, we may have our perpetrator here.
There we go.
Yes. So, of course, what do law enforcement do? They start researching where it's coming from. And they find out very quick that the property was actually that of Nick Godejohn's parents. And since it was so far away, I know. Oh, just hold on. Don't be signed just yet.
I mean, they will find you if you do something stupid. Like,
yes, they will. Yes, they will. But they're on the hunt for this girl.
Yeah.
They need to find this girl. She is in danger. Her life is in danger. Of course, since it was so far away, they contact the local sheriff's department or police department up there, and they say, hey, go check this out. Now, not knowing what to expect, they head over to the house, and they just barge in, guns drawn, all this stuff. And this is on June 16th now. We're now 2 days later after the Facebook post.
mm-hmm.
And once they go into this property that could be the potential killer of Dee Dee and kidnapper of Gypsy, they think they're right. Because who's inside? Gypsy. She's there. She's okay. She doesn't have a scratch on her.
What?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. We found her. And the community back home was so relieved. But there was one freaking thing that was big different about Gypsy. She was walking.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't fucking say.
Without a wheelchair. I know y'all know this story, but I'm setting it up for those who don't.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Hallelujah.
Just so sloppy. Like they use the same IP address to post that crap, and then they leave all the wheelchairs behind. I mean, did they not think that people were not going to notice when she was found? And she was walking upright and not in a wheelchair?
Like,
let's continue on with the story because I'm holding my tongue right now, Blake. I'm holding my tongue.
We're getting through there. So Gypsy's found. She's fine. She's okay. She is walking. She needs absolutely no assistance from a wheelchair. She's doing it just fine. She can stand on her own. She can walk on her own. And as one police officer says, she does it very well.
It's a miracle.
So the news gets back. Yeah, the news gets
Thank you, Jesus.
So the news gets back to Springfield that Gypsy's okay, but that she's walking and everybody is shocked. And that's the moment that everything turns concerning Gypsy. And what unfolds next is the biggest, massive, huge, humongous fraud scheme. Scam that I think you've ever heard of in your freaking life. So for that, we got to go all the way back to the beginning.
Yes, where does it start?
To when Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born. Now, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born in 1991. Don't do the math just yet. You'll hurt your brain. In the small town of Golden Meadow, Louisiana, which is on the extreme southern coast of Louisiana. She was considered small when she was born, but other than that, everything normal. And she was lovingly nicknamed
perfectly normal little baby.
Perfectly normal little baby. They nicknamed her Possum because she was so cute of her appearance. She looked like a little possum. That's what one of her aunts says. But things changed rather quickly. So, of course, we know her mother is Dee Dee Blanchard. Her father is Rod Blanchard, R-O-D, like in dog. And things seem to change rather quickly for little Gypsy. At 3 months old, Dee Dee begins to tell Gypsy's father that she has developed sleep apnea at 3 years old. And this is Gypsy at 3. Now, for those of y'all who... Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say because I had heard that he actually married Dee Dee because he felt like he had to.
We gonna get to that.
Okay. All right. Cool.
We gonna get to that.
Okay.
I got all the deets. We gonna get to that.
All right.
Ryan, I'm trying so hard not to jump ahead. I'm trying to let him tell this story because I got some hot takes on this.
Oh yes.
We're gonna have a whole section after the story called Shelley's hot takes.
I'm gonna tell you now, don't hate on me because I think you're gonna agree with me.
After you hear, let me get all the details out real quick before y'all start hating on Shelley over
here.
So, for those who don't know, sleep apnea is where there's pauses in breathing or periods of shallow breathing during sleep that occur more often than normal. And so Dee Dee starts taking Gypsy to the hospital for overnight stays to run these tests with a sleep monitor and all this other stuff.
Well, infants, that can cause SIDS, which can cause them to die in their sleep. Correct. So that's a very valid reason for a mother to be concerned. She walks in, her child isn't breathing. Of course you take them to the doctor. Of course you do. Yes. You don't want anything bad to happen to your child in their sleep.
Absolutely.
Good mother, take her child to the doctor to make sure that her little baby is safe in her crib.
Yes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, Shelley. Anyways, so all these tests come back negative. She don't have sleep apnea, but her mother swears she wasn't convinced. So they end up, well, she was convinced that because of some undiagnosed chromosomal disorder that she developed sleep apnea. So she begins to watch her daughter like a hawk. She's not going to let anybody else watch her. Her own father can't even watch her, can't even keep her. And this continues, and she's starting to get older at about 4 years old. You actually see a video of her at 4. There's a video on the internet of her at 4 years old competing in a pageant. She's bright, she's bubbly, she's having fun and all this kind of stuff.
She's laughing, she's walking, she's running, she's talking.
Yes, just as any 4-year-old should be. She is perfectly normal at this point.
And adorable, and Mama is there just cheering for her, and wave at the camera, Gypsy, and it's time for you to do your little pageant, Gypsy, and adorable little baby, just adorable as she can be.
Yes. However, yeah, I know. Oh, shock face. Dee Dee starts to figure out that Gypsy at this point is having issues with her eyes. And she tells Rod this. She tells her father this, and he's like, well, why are they running all these tests, so to speak, whatnot? And she's like, they're looking for a chromosomal disorder. Like, she was convinced they were looking for a chromosome disorder. Like, chromosome deletion, basically, is what she was convinced of. But basically what would happen with her eyes is she would have these seizures, and it would cause an eye to become crooked. And so she'd have to surgically have it corrected. And it would be corrected. She'd have another seizure. She'd have another surgery.
Well, you'd think after surgery number 1 or 2, they'd have sewn that thing in there a little bit better, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
You would think. And well, she claimed also at the same time that she was having all these seizures and getting her eyes corrected and everything like that. These seizures were knocking her back mentally, every one that she was having.
That's not how that works.
Well, I'm gonna let somebody more in the medical field who knows a little bit more knowledge about that speak on that behalf, but I'm just gonna tell you what Dee Dee was claiming was happening. And at this time, because of the seizures with her eyes, she's having hearing problems, she's having vision problems. So she starts wearing glasses. And about 5 years old, it starts to take a real drastic turn. Poor little Gypsy is diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh, poor baby.
There's no mention of a doctor's visit. There's no mention of a test, but Gypsy's got leukemia. She receives, I believe, 5 months worth of treatment, and there's no further issues. So
Praise be, she's cured.
we're through the leukemia.
This is
We've
the
gotten
most
through that
miraculous
phase.
baby ever.
Now,
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
somewhere, Gypsy says somewhere in this time when she's looking back on her childhood, between the age of 5 when she's diagnosed with leukemia and about the age of 7 of the story that I'm about to tell y'all, there was a walker. She had to use a walker involved to assist her with her mobility because she was having issues with her mobility
Well,
at this
that
point.
chemotherapy will mess you up.
Yeah.
And what part she had a little heart murmur at some point. Didn't she have a heart murmur diagnosis?
She did. She did.
And didn't they have to put tubes in her little ears for her hearing?
She did.
Poor baby.
Beat me to the punch.
I'm sorry.
So about the age of 7, she ends up having she claims it's a motorcycle accident. I think she ended up falling off her grandfather's motorcycle or something like that, ends up scraping her knee. Her mother freaks out. Her mother takes her to a hospital for a minor knee abrasion. That's all it was. And they're like, yeah, skint boo-boo. Kiss it, make it better. And they're like, your daughter's fine. Just put a Band-Aid on it. Take her home. She's fine. But Dee Dee wasn't convinced. She just didn't think her daughter was healed. So she brings her in a wheelchair because she doesn't want to strain her daughter's knee any more than it already is until she can get her daughter healed. Her daughter's going to be in a wheelchair.
She just skinned her knee. She didn't tear her MCL or ACL or anything. She just skinned her damn knee.
You don't know. You're not a doctor.
No. As far as you know.
Yeah. And also comes to light, she was using the walker because of muscular dystrophy that she was also diagnosed with.
Poor baby.
So 7 years old, this young little girl's got a lot going on at this point. So Dee Dee ends up quitting her job, her full-time job, to take care of Gypsy.
You'd have to.
Yeah.
You'd have to. As a good mother, you'd have to.
Absolutely. And Rod's response to this, Gypsy's father, was that, hey, I'll continue to take care of you. I'll pay all medical expenses. I'll take care of the insurance pertaining to Gypsy. You know, I'll pay you alimony because they were divorced at this time. You know, he was going to do anything that he could to help take care of her.
Did he ever ask how much the bubble was going to cost that we're going to have to keep her in?
I don't think that specific question was ever brought up. No.
I don't know. I won't speak on that. Go ahead.
Gypsy being a child, and a child that has now been through leukemia and has muscular dystrophy and all of this, and you know, strained knee from a skin abrasion, she don't stay in the wheelchair. And there's actually a couple of relatives of her that saw her on 2 separate occasions pushing her cousins around in her wheelchair and jumping on a trampoline. And Dee Dee's excuse to this was she had the wheelchair because her legs would become weak and would give out. And eventually she's going to be wheelchair bound as she gets older. So we have it already so she can get used to it.
So let her jump on trampoline. You leave her alone, mind your business.
Yeah. So in these moments where she's caught outside of her wheelchair, Dee Dee starts screaming at her. You know, you're paralyzed. Whatever she screams at her, I don't know. But you're paralyzed. Act like it. And Gypsy would flail to the ground and feign paralysis and drag herself back to her wheelchair and get up in her wheelchair and be paralyzed again.
Oh, Mama says my legs don't work.
Well, it's like Toy Story whenever Andy shows up. Just get down to the ground.
Pretty much.
We're laughing. It's not funny, but we're laughing because
you'll see why we're laughing here in a second. But the damage was done at that point. The relatives had seen it, so people start asking questions, and Rod starts asking questions.
That's Daddy.
That's Daddy. That's Daddy. And Dee Dee's response to this was to take Gypsy and move her to Thibodaux, Louisiana, which is about an hour away. And not much is known about their time in Thibodaux, but shortly after that, I actually believe it's a couple of years later after that, more questions are brought up. So she moves her to New Orleans. And New Orleans is about an hour and a half away. Well,
so just further isolating them each time.
Yeah, because people are asking questions. But Mama knows best, and Mama's taking her to the doctor, and
it wasn't part of the reason to move there is because that's where the good doctors were that could really take care of Gypsy very well. They had better doctors in New Orleans than they did in Thibodaux. And that this was where Gypsy's new doctor was.
Yes. But Rod started to notice, her dad started to notice that there was like this change in the father-daughter relationship at this moment, and kind of felt like Dee Dee wasn't really allowing him to build that special relationship that a father and a daughter have. And he also felt at this time, she keeps moving her, I can't really bring up any serious issues or questions, and she might cut me off. And he didn't want to lose his daughter. I mean, he had a straight up fear about losing his daughter just from prying too much and asking questions. Now, while they're in New Orleans, Gypsy undergoes test for muscular dystrophy. And this test is extremely painful. I mean, they strip muscle off of your thigh muscle.
Oh, God.
Yes.
And I believe they also do a spinal tap at this point somewhere in New Orleans. Isn't she also given a spinal tap?
I don't think I ever actually heard anything about the spinal tap.
Believe
Did you
there's
find something about it?
I believe there's a spinal tap involved whenever they live in New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you found something about it, I've looked through a lot of articles and read and watched a lot of documentaries, and I didn't ever see anything about a spinal tap. But not to say it didn't happen. It just may not have been in any of the particular ones that I watched or read. But yeah, they strip muscle off your thigh for a muscular dystrophy test, and this test ends up coming back negative.
Praise be.
So
you don't say.
We have sleep apnea that's come back negative. Leukemia is gone. Muscular dystrophy is negative. No, Dee Dee was adamant that Gypsy suffered from muscular dystrophy.
The tests don't lie.
But the doctor said,
Mama knows best. Just remember.
Apparently.
Hold on. I'm sorry. We got somebody putting up very derogatory, nasty, naked comments on our YouTube page. I had to block them out of the stream. My bad.
Oh, good Lord.
Anywho,
are they angry with us?
No, they're not angry. It's a bot.
Okay.
It's a bot. I'm just blocking the user.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Anyways, they are now blocked. Sorry for anybody who might have seen those comments on our YouTube page while we were streaming.
Apologies. We'll go back and take all those off later.
We sure will. But yeah, she was adamant that she suffered from the disease. And during this time, since we're also in New Orleans with the best doctors, Gypsy, Paula says, I want to see. Gypsy starts undergoing surgeries on her eyes. Actually, multiple surgeries for her eyes for weakness, like in her eyes. It was never described exactly what the weakness was, but she was having the damn surgeries. And also, go ahead, Ryan.
For these tests to be coming back negative like they are all the time, this woman has to have a superhuman ability to remember what the symptoms are of these syndromes and diseases her daughter supposedly has.
She doesn't have a superhuman memory.
I mean, to describe this accurately, to have medical professionals be like, well, yeah, that's what it sounds like. And then have them go through.
Can I tell him?
You can go ahead.
Yeah.
At one point, she was a nurse.
Ah, okay. All right. That makes sense. Well, she knows what she's doing then.
That's right. And she was a nurse. And she would tell those doctors that she had been around this. She knew what this looked like. And I don't give a damn that your test came back negative. Run it again. Or if you can't figure it out, guess what I'll do? I'll go to another doctor and I'll let everybody know that you couldn't find what was wrong with my child. I'm a nurse and know what's wrong with my child.
I will get a second opinion. Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Well, honestly, that's what she was saying. That's what she was doing.
Okay.
I mean, she would absolutely say, if you can't figure it out, I'll go to somebody else who can. And I'm going to ruin your reputation for it, basically.
Wow.
If you can't figure it out. So Dee Dee comes forward to these doctors in New Orleans and says, hey, my daughter's having an issue. I think the actual medical term is dysphagia, something like that. It's where you have trouble swallowing, where you can't eat correctly. She says she can't eat. She can't get the nutrients that she needs.
She's starving.
She's starving. So what do? They end up finding a doctor who's willing to put in a feeding tube. Now, a feeding tube is another one of these that after it goes in, it's also painful to have because every 6 months you got to have it changed. And
you risk infection.
Yep.
Daily if you don't keep it cleaned correctly.
I read that she gave her daughter like medication that was causing her to salivate, that caused the feeding tube to go in.
there's a fun little story that I'm actually about to cover.
Oh, okay.
About that.
All right.
And so with the feeding tube, you have to go in every 6 months and have it changed out. Well, they're just going to take you into an ER, rip the old one out, and shove the new one in. That's basically all they do. And as Gypsy said, there's no anesthesia to this.
Okay.
And so it's extremely painful. And if that wasn't enough, because she drooled too much, she had a surgery to remove her salivary glands.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Because Mama was afraid that she would choke on her own drool. And therefore, in an effort to protect her child, she didn't want her child to accidentally choke on her excessive drooling in her sleep. And she had a feeding tube she couldn't swallow. She might drown. They need to be taken out.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And we're talking about, this is Gypsy probably around this time. Gypsy's
But
on
is
the
she
right,
about
obviously.
5 there? Is she about 5? 4 or 5? Because she was small for her age.
She was small for her age. And I'm trying to remember the year off the top of my head. I think it was 1997 that
Then
they
she would have
moved
been 6.
to New Orleans. So she would have been about 6 years old at this time.
5 or 6. Yeah.
And these are just a couple of other pictures of her during this, the kind of during and shortly after this time. Oh, look, she's standing, she's walking, she's running, she's a kid.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that was when her muscles were working right. That was before the muscular dystrophy kicked in hardcore. You leave her alone.
So in 2005, we all know what happens in 2005 for New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina hits, obviously, which devastated
August 30th,
New Orleans.
2005.
Yep. And Dee Dee and Gypsy are in New Orleans, and they end up being displaced because of this, and they go to a special needs shelter in Covington, Louisiana. And the shelter doctor there is presented with photos of their doomed apartment, air quotes, air quotes, air quotes, and claims that Gypsy's medical records are lost, and this doctor starts crying.
How convenient.
Yeah, and Gypsy reaches out her hand, and she's like, "It's okay. You're only human." And so they're led into the shelter, and shortly after that, they are moved from the shelter to a home in Missouri, same home in the beginning of the story in Springfield, Missouri, and ended up catching the media's attention because Habitat for Humanity came in it's actually about 3 years later. I think it's 2008. Habitat for Humanity comes in. They build a ramp so Gypsy has wheelchair access into the house. At this time, they're given a car with wheelchair accessibility. They're given gifts from Make-A-Wish and trips to Disneyland, Disney World, and plane tickets and all this stuff.
Because that little girl's been through enough. She's going to die. Her mother has told that she is not long for this world.
Yeah.
And that's because that's whenever you go on the Make-A-Wish list is whenever you're terminally ill.
Yeah.
And mother has told everyone that, I'm sorry, my little girl is going to die. She's not much longer for this world. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure the time she has left on this earth is wonderful.
But she's got everything under the sun, so we're doing what we can.
Yeah. And so after they end up moving to Missouri, Rod ends up saying, he's like, I tried to do everything that I could to stay in touch with my daughter. He's like, I would call, I'd send her birthday cards, flowers, all that kind of stuff. But when he would call, Dee Dee would say like, Gypsy's taking a nap. She'll call you back later. Well, when she called back later, she somehow had all the right answers to his questions that he was going to ask, about how you're doing and like what's new, and all that kind of stuff. So I know that's a lot. So let me just kind of recap for you real quick. At this point, we're at 2008, so to speak. A recap of Gypsy's ailments up to this point. Okay, just hold on. Sleep apnea. Microcephaly, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Microcephalitis, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to butcher some of these words, I'm sure. Which is smaller than normal head. Asthma, epilepsy/seizures, hearing and vision impaired, severe migraines, gastrointestinal reflux, muscular dystrophy, paraplegia, quadriplegia. Yeah, figure that one out.
Yeah.
Dysphagia. So she's fed with a feeding tube. Needed an oxygen tank. Cerebral palsy. Anemia. Allergies. Chromosome deletion. A syrinx, which is a fluid-filled cavity within the spinal cord. Hers was occurring between C7 and C8, which is the 7th and 8th vertebrae of the cranial portion of your spine. Incontinence, lung disease, leukemia, a heart murmur, and an intellectual developmental disability. I believe that's 22.
What about your drooling?
Excessive drooling. Okay.
That's 23 ailments that this
23
poor baby
ailments.
has suffered.
Yep. Now her known surgeries that are said to have happened are multiple eye correction surgeries, feeding to you can go ahead and probably there's no telling how many. They actually didn't give a number. Feeding tube insertion, ear surgery for tubes, multiple teeth extractions from rotting teeth, possibly due to the medication and not having the salivary glands.
Teeth extractions. Let's say at least 3.
Yep. And not having the salivary glands, which she had removed. Muscular dystrophy test, a surgery to not make her throw up anymore, her head shaved due to the cancer, and as she herself put it, many other undisclosed tests and surgeries where anesthesia was used. Now,
let's say 17, and I think that's on the low side.
Now,
and she got walrus gumboot, toe jam football.
Now,
I mean, just like
an eyebrow mange.
Almighty.
Don't forget the eyebrow mange.
Not the eyebrow mange.
It's a miracle this kid is breathing. If this is true,
this is Gypsy about this time of what we're talking about.
That poor baby does not have any teeth in the front of her mouth.
No,
because all the medication for the leukemia and for the muscular dystrophy has pretty much rotted them out. Now, in that picture, she does have teeth, but that was probably after one of the surgeries to implant her new teeth in.
Yes. So now hold your breath for just a second because I'm going to run down a list of her known medications. Okay. EpiPen, levetiracetam, however you say it, which is an anticonvulsant, cetirizine, an allergy medication, Flovent, which is a steroid inhaler, Advair, an asthma inhaler, albuterol nebulizer, another asthma inhaler, Bactroban, antibiotic ointment for sores, Nystatin, which is an antifungal medication for fungus or yeast, Zantac for heartburn, Ciprodex, used for ear infection in children with tubes, Bactrim, which is a general antibiotic covering a wide array of symptoms, Diazepam, which treats anxiety, alcohol withdrawal, and seizures, Lactulose, which treats constipation, Flonase, which is a nasal spray for allergies, Loratadine, which is an antihistamine for allergies, diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl.
Diphenhydramine,
that word. Prednisolone, which treats arthritis, blood problems, immune system disorders, skin and eye conditions, breathing problems, cancer, and severe allergies. Xanax, which is anxiety and panic disorder, is what it treats. Integratol, which treats bipolar 1 disorder, epilepsy, and trigeminal neuralgia, which is facial pain.
So there's 20. She's on more drugs than Keith Richards. Jesus Christ.
Now, that is a small sampling of the medication she was on. Because
that is the medication closet.
Sampling?
This is her medication closet.
There is no way Blake would ever be able to figure out all those names.
No. This is her medication closet, or should I say a linen closet turned medicine cabinet.
Jesus Christ, what did Mama do? Put a funnel in her mouth and just pour everything down? I mean...
Well, you got to remember, she also had a feeding tube.
Oh, that's right. That's how she's getting everything. You're right.
Could be given medications as well, too. So,
God almighty. And one of the things that the Gypsy said was that a lot of the medication mainly just made her really drowsy.
Very sedative. Yes, a lot of the medication she was on. Yes. So, as I said, we're about the 2007-2008 time frame now. And this is kind of where the story begins to take its turn, finally. Mm-hmm. Now, while they're living in Missouri, Dee Dee ends up taking Gypsy to a pediatric neurologist, and his name is Dr. Flasterstein. And he begins his meeting with them and notices that Dee Dee's doing all the talking. And all of a sudden, we don't have records because the records were lost in Katrina. So he has to trust what Dee Dee says to him. Now, during his examination, he remembers that Gypsy's muscle tone was muscle tone was, and muscle size may have been a little bit smaller size muscles, but they were good and her reflexes were good. And it didn't make sense to him why Gypsy shouldn't be able to stand, walk, and carry her own body weight, because everything he was looking at said that she should. So he orders an MRI on the spine, and it comes back normal. Shocker. Hallelujah. So he tells Dee Dee, look, she should be able to stand, walk, and carry her own body weight. And she becomes irate, and she says, I'm never coming back. Just not going to do it. So in the final medical record that's written in 2007 by Dr. Flasterstein, he notes the very first line is, "Mother is not a good historian." And that's the first time.
But yes, she is. She knew the name of everything. She knew everything that child had. She knew everything was wrong with that child. She was an excellent historian. How dare he?
But it seems to be ever changing. So,
But does it? She keeps saying the same thing over and over again.
So it doesn't make sense to him. So he starts to call up past pediatricians, and he starts interviewing past pediatricians. And a lot of the notes that he found from these pediatricians that basically said, history seems to change depending on what doctor that they go to. They're at a cardiologist, the whole family dies of heart attacks. A neurologist, everybody dies of strokes. Something's still not adding up here. So he gets to one particular pediatrician who remembers them. And he writes in his final summary on Gypsy's note, I'm going to quote it. He says, the above mentioned pediatrician also recalls this patient and mentioned the fact that when she was confronted about some of the complaints, the family moved to a different city. Her brain MRI and spinal MRI essentially are normal. The above mentioned syrinx is minimal. So she actually did have a syrinx, a fluid-filled cavity on her spine, but it was minimal. The reason why she's not able to move is not clear. Her deep tendon reflexes are normal, as is her muscle mass and lower extremities. At this time, for a matter of completeness, she was referred to have her nerve conduction studies and an EMG. Analyzing all the facts after talking to her previous pediatrician, there is a strong possibility of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, with maybe some underlying unknown etiology to explain her symptoms.
That doctor just said that mom is crazy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
First off, before we start going, because I know y'all probably gonna have something to say at this point.
Child, I'm having a real hard time going, that's a good mom. I'm having a real hard time saying that. Continue on with your story.
So for those who don't know, Munchausen syndrome by proxy, number one, I will put it out there. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is no longer the name of it. Munchausen has had his name wiped from it for issues that he had concerning court cases and all that kind of stuff. So now they are calling it facetious disorder imposed on another, which is what it's called now. And it is a form of child abuse.
Oh, yeah.
It's when the caretaker of a child, usually the mother, makes up fake symptoms or causes real symptoms to make it look like the child is sick with the intention of deceiving others.
In order to garner attention, sympathy, or favor for herself or himself.
Yes. And in this case in particular, it's discussed that there was malingering by proxy, which is another of the symptoms, wherein a person is after some type of financial remuneration or compensation.
Does it for personal financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she wouldn't do that, would she? Oh, wait, there was that house.
Disney World.
There was a car. Oh, there were all those GoFundMes. What's that Make-A-Wish thing?
Shelley's
I
just
don't.
being...
Yeah, I don't think you can call that for personal gain. They did it for the child, didn't they? Wasn't it for the child? Nah.
Was it though?
Let's not diagnose the mama just yet. Let's see if we can find more evidence.
So a lot of people think that with facetious disorder imposed on another, that the mother, which is typical in those cases, typically the mother, is usually or probably abused herself, which in this case is kind of what is reported. So let's pause on this story for a real quick second. Let me tell y'all a real brief history on little Miss Dee Dee Blanchard real fast. We'll pick back up here in just a second.
Okay.
Now y'all listen close, okay?
So Dee Dee was born Claudine Pitry, but everybody called her Dee Dee. She was the youngest.
Here for that.
She was the youngest of six children. She had three brothers and two sisters. And her parents were Claude and Emma Pitry, who eventually separated, and Claude ended up marrying a lady named Laura, which is Dee Dee's stepmother. And Claude describes the relationship as she was okay. We were pretty close. I'd give her everything except for dog in the house. Those were his exact words. And growing up, Dee Dee's siblings said that whenever she wanted something, she got it. They couldn't
she
go
was
to
spoiled. She was the baby of the family. She was
Yeah.
spoiled rotten. Got
Yeah.
everything she wanted.
They couldn't go to college, have a first car. They all had to sleep in the same room. Dee Dee went to college, got a car, and slept in her mother's bed with her. Also, though, however, when Dee Dee was a child and growing up a little bit, her mother said, no, Dee Dee can't do chores or get overheated or too excited because she's got stomach issues and headaches and gets fevers and has a heart murmur.
Poor little Dee Dee had a heart murmur?
Poor little Dee Dee had a heart murmur. Yeah.
I know what happened when I told my mother I couldn't do a chore because of stomach ache. She said, here, drink this Pepto. I'm like, hell no, I'll just go do it with my stomach hurt. And I ain't drinking that crap.
You ain't lying.
Yeah, no, I'd rather be sick.
Yeah. And so, excuse me. And so none of which were ever like, no medical records existed to show that prove that this was true about Dee Dee either.
Well, Dee Dee didn't want to go to the doctor. Yuck.
So she's having all these things, but there's no medical records or no proof of it that she's having it. Is it a generational thing? Possibly. Let's continue real fast. So as Dee Dee starts getting older, her stepmother starts coming into the picture, and she's like, she became like a very guilty person. She didn't get what she wanted. She was going to make you pay. And did she make us pay? This is a quote. Did she make us pay? Yeah, we paid a lot.
So she was vindictive?
She was vindictive.
Ooh.
Now, when she's 24, she meets Rod at a bowling alley. A couple of weeks later, they begin dating. She gets pregnant. Rod goes, crap, I got to marry you. So they get married. Rod's 17. She's 24. When he turns 18, he wakes up and goes, what the hell am I freaking doing here? I had done got married for all the wrong reasons. And shortly before Gypsy is born, he cuts out. And he says
they get a divorce?
Yeah. They get a divorce. Yep.
Before she's even born.
Before she's even born. Very shortly before she's even born. And he says she was into like dark stuff that
such as
witchcraft, and she had a pet tarantula, and she just always talked about like dark stuff and death and all that kind of.
Well, that don't mean you're witchy. I do that except for the tarantula.
No, look at the 3 on the screen.
Yeah, I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, but none of us have a tarantula. I was gonna say, that may be the tipping point. The spider may be the tipping point. Anyway,
she sounds like my kind of lady.
Ryan.
You know, minus the child.
Let's finish the story. Let's finish the story. Hold on. Yeah. However, Dee Dee's family paints a very different picture of her. I mean, she got arrested one time for shoplifting, but on top of that, she wrote hot checks. She would steal clothes from the laundromat. Wow. Her mother, Emma, was also, Emma was also arrested for shoplifting. Her nephews claim that she was allegedly wanted by America's Most Wanted. I did not find any truth to that.
Whoa! I was gonna say I never heard that, but that's what the nephew said.
That's what the nephew said. Okay. Actually, nephew said it. There were several claims that she allegedly was stealing money from her father and grandfather in sums upwards of like $4,000. She was alleged to open up credit cards under her uncle and grandfather's name and run the bills up. I mean,
I don't think that's alleged. I think that was actually.
I think that was actually.
I believe that was actually proven because they had to. Yeah.
So what?
She sounds just like so long story short, she's a real piece of work.
Pretty much, because a couple of other things. Her mother ends up dying in like 1997, which Dee Dee took very hard. I mean, of course, she was smothered with love from her mother, and all of a sudden her mother's not here. And she really started to kind of look for that attention, to fill that void, basically, from the mother's love that was no longer there.
Yeah.
That would have been about the time that Gypsy's wheelchair would have appeared in the picture in 1997. Which is kind of where things really started to take a very drastic turn for Dee Dee.
Okay. Do you think that do you think that she did this because, like you said, it was generational? Or do you think that maybe she had a psychotic break when her mother died and then just went whole hog into doing what she did to Gypsy?
I think that there was some sort of turning point for her when her mother died, because it's too coincidental that her mother dies and then all of a sudden Gypsy gets the worst of the worst ailments and the worst of the
Okay.
worst surgeries, and now she's
Mhm.
paralyzed, fully in a wheelchair. It all goes kind of crazy for Gypsy right around the time her mother dies. And that's just me looking at the coincidences of it, so to speak.
Mhm.
But hold on, we're not through with her family. There was another claim by multiple family members that she actually had a hand in the death of her own mother, that she was starving her mother
What?
to death slowly
Dee
as her
Dee was
mother
the
lay
caregiver
dying.
for her mother for quite a while. The singular caregiver. She didn't want her brothers and sister to take care of her mother. She wanted to take care of her. So you see, this, and I'm going to call it Munchausen by proxy. And forgive me if that's not the correct
That's fine.
terminology. That is what I know it as. That is, and I will be wrong. And please feel free to correct me in the comments. I'm aware I'm saying it wrong because I can't remember the other one. Munchausen by proxy doesn't have to be against a child. It can be against anyone that you are caring for.
Correct.
And she became mom's kind of sole caregiver, protector, took care of everything, which is why she claimed that the money was gone for the bank. She had to buy stuff for her mom. She had to write these checks because mom needed this, because mom needed that. And that's why there was money going out of the accounts. And so she was such a saint for looking after her mother. And this little tiny baby that had all these terrible problems. What a saint Dee Dee Blanchard is.
Yep. And I think what ended up happening is after her mother died, she just became another run-of-the-mill woman. She had no accolades. She had no accomplishments, nothing. And basically, as her sister put it, she was doing to Gypsy what her mother was doing to her. She was faking over 22 ailments for Gypsy, causing a litany, there's my word, of unnecessary surgeries and medications for her to take. When in fact, it was all, pardon my language, fucking made up.
Yeah.
She was a very ordinary woman who felt she should be living a very extraordinary life. Unfortunately, that's not the hand that she was dealt.
Yep.
So therefore, she shuffled the cards.
Yep.
But think about this too. Like a lot of these people who are involved in big true crime cases, they're just ordinary run-of-the-mill people who have these delusions of grandeur and need and have a need to be the center of attention, or have a need to be praised or be
noticed.
By everyone. So whenever something goes wrong, they turn to whatever it is that's going to get them the recognition.
Yep.
And
for her, I guess this was it.
Yeah.
But
I'm still holding my opinions till the end.
Oh no, we're getting there. It starts to.
I'm bubbling now.
It starts to snowball. It starts to snowball relatively fast here. But the biggest question is how up until freaking 2007 does nobody report this? How is it that the first time this is in a medical report is with Dr. Flasterstein in 2007? This Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And the way that I come about it is that it's doctors are businessmen, flat out. I'm just going to throw that out there. Do I think that there are great doctors? Absolutely. Do I think that there are horrible doctors who probably shouldn't be in the profession? Absolutely. And I think that's the point there, because the mother knew if she couldn't get what she wanted at one, she would go and go and go and go until she found somebody who cared more. Yes, who cared more about the freaking money than the patient's well wishes.
I'll tell you what, the doctor that wrote that in that report, they asked him, why did you not call Child Protective Services? He said, I didn't think I'd be believed. This mother did have medical knowledge. This mother legitimately could not prove the records because of Hurricane Katrina. He goes, I had nothing to prove that. Well, guess what? You don't have to prove that as a medical doctor. Any of you doctors that don't know this, you don't have to prove that. You can report a suspicion to Child Protective Services, and it is your obligation as a doctor to do no harm. It's also to prevent harm. And that doctor and every single freaking doctor that turned them away and every single doctor that did that surgery, they had an obligation to that little girl. And they went.
It basically sums up with it, to add on what you're saying. The whole summary of that is if you have a reasonable suspicion and you're making a report in good faith,
Good faith is the key word.
You are protected and required to make the report. And that goes not just for that goes for anybody who is required to report issues of child abuse to CPS or social services or social workers or anything like that.
And maybe that doctor goes, hey, you know what? I didn't report it because I didn't do the surgery. I didn't know she was going to go doc shop. I didn't know she was going to go find somebody else. She was adamant. She was angry. She was certain. She tells you she's going to go somewhere else. Why not just kind of, hey, you know what? I just want to tell you, I'm calling CPS. Say, listen, this was who was in here. The mother's attitude worried me. I just wanted to make somebody aware of it. Maybe do a wellness check on the kid. That's all you had to do. All you had to do.
I wonder too, though, as far as why the information wasn't getting passed along, because you hear stories about, back in the 70s and 80s, how a lot of serial killers got away with a lot of stuff is because police departments didn't share information with each other. So, if you've got a family practice in Louisiana, they moved to Missouri. How do you know where they went? Number one. Number two, how are you going to share that information with the doctor unless you somehow get a call from that doctor?
Okay, so the day that it happened, when those doctors should have reported it, they knew where she was. You know why? Because they had her damn address on the pill bottles. All the prescriptions that went to those pharmacies had her home address on them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to accept that as an excuse. There are, God knows how, well, we know she had at least, 20? Did we count up 20 surgeries and over 20 different medications? Mm-hmm. That probably means there were 20 doctors that failed that child. That's things that did things.
Well, it just depends. It just depends, because there was a lot of those that I listed that most of them are not most, but some of them are over the counter. So, but yes, you are right. There are some there that are prescribed, and a doctor would have to write that prescription. Therefore, the address would be. I totally agree with you on that. One prescription would have been enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
I'm off my soapbox until we continue, because I'm about to break sideways on this. But go ahead.
let me wrap up the story, and I will let you bash all left and right all over this podcast. So fast forward 2 years later, after the Flasterstein report coming out, we're now in 2009. An anonymous.
And Flasterstein's the doctor.
Flasterstein was a doctor. Yeah. We're now in 2009. An anonymous report comes into the Springfield Police Department expressing concern that Gypsy was not as sick as her mother claimed she was. The police actually show up to their house, walk inside, and begin asking questions. She produces a Social Security card, which shows at the time Gypsy's actually 18 and not 14. But however, no, yeah, you think she's busted now, right? No, because she begins to spin this story yet again that the medical records were lost. They're on the run from her ex-husband because they're so fearful of her. And that's why a lot of things are changed and different. And, look at this linen closet turned medicine cabinet. She's on all this. The police are convinced. They leave. And one of them actually writes in his report, quote, "Gypsy does suffer from a mental handicap." Those were his actual words. So yet again, she gets away with it. Somebody tried to do the good deed and turn her in, but yet the police came and convinced them that Gypsy was actually sick.
So can I grab about something on this too? Whenever they spoke to Gypsy with her mother present. Mm-hmm. And Cop 101 is that you never leave the people you got to talk to together. You separate them. But they didn't, because they didn't want to separate the sick child from her mother. And I believe her mother kind of insisted that she needed to be right there with her. I believe the mother almost was between the officer and the child. And I believe the mother answered most of the questions for the child. I believe that was in Gypsy's interview. She
always did. Yeah. Always did. Didn't matter who it was with. Gypsy's only word that she was ever allowed to say was fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine. Either one. So fast forward another year. See, we're getting closer and closer to 2015 about what the hell happened. 2010. This is when a light switches on in Gypsy's brain, because she's digging around in her mother's room, basically, or she's in her mother's room or something like that. And she herself comes across her Medicaid card and a couple of other pieces of paper. And her Medicaid card actually shows birth year 1991. Mm-hmm. What? I'm 15.
Wait a minute. What year is it?
I'm 15. I'm not 19. What? I'm a full-grown adult. What? So all of a sudden, she starts making this plan, I guess, to get away. She questions her mother.
She's
I was gonna say,
old enough to
does
leave.
she confront her mom at this point when she
But
finds
wait,
this?
how did Mama get away with letting everybody think she was 14 if she was actually 19? How did she do that?
She would change and falsify paperwork, and she claimed that the Medicaid card was actually a typo. That it was supposed to be 1995, not 1991.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you how she did it, people. She was changing the date on her daughter's birth certificate as needed.
Yep. From 1991 to 1993 to 1995. Basically, she was planning to keep this young girl, a
child,
Mm-hmm.
as long as
she possibly could. So after she confronts her mother about this, hey, why does it say 1991? She's like, oh, it's a typo. Gypsy ends up meeting this friend, and they go to a sci-fi convention called VisionCon, and she ends up actually opening up to him about what's actually taking place at home. That's huge. And so this guy basically tells her, look, you can come live with me in Arkansas. You need to pack your bags. You're going to go with me. So she ends up doing that, gets back to his hotel room with him, and somehow there's mutual friends involved. Dee Dee finds out. Dee Dee flies over there to wherever she's at, produces this falsified paperwork showing that Gypsy's 15 and she's about to threaten to call the cops on him for being 36 with a 15-year-old with a minor. And since she's a minor, she's coming with me. And she does. She ends up having to go back home. And this is the moment that Gypsy calls the bad times. Because after this, she gets back home. Dee Dee smashes her computer. She ends up hitting her with a coat hanger in her palm and calling her a bitch, a slut, a whore, devil spawn. She would starve her. Similar
to
with
keep
her
her
mother.
small and skinny.
Yes. She took a dog leash and attached it to some handcuffs and attached that to the bed and locked Gypsy up. The only time she was allowed out or to move was she used the bathroom. She had to go back. She placed tent on the windows so nobody could see inside. I think it's funny that comes back to hinder her after she's dead. But anyways, because they couldn't see inside the home. And ends up lasting for 2 weeks. She even had papers drawn up by a lawyer to declare Gypsy incompetent in case she went to the police. Those papers were in place and Gypsy was declared insane.
Man, she thought of everything. This woman meticulously planned this.
Yeah.
You know, and that is abuse on such a major level. You know, you have, and abusers will isolate people so they can control them more easily. And the fact that we have moved you to a whole nother state, you know no one. She has her friend next door, which I think they were secretly communicating in the first place, right? Like
Well, that's about to come into play about what she does to start trying to. So
yeah,
I'll tell you this. So Dee Dee ends up buying a new computer, and Gypsy's only allowed to use it under her supervision. Well, we fast forward a couple of years, and in 2013, she starts using it after her mom goes to sleep, and she gets on a Christian dating site, and she creates a profile. This is where she meets Nick Godejohn. They meet on a Christian dating site. Sorry, I have to laugh a little.
I that's okay. I was laughing about that last night.
And so
we know which one. We can't say.
Yeah, we won't say.
We're not going to say.
Put two and two together, people. You've seen a commercial.
Pretty much. Excuse me. And so of course it starts out, it's all fun and games. What do you do for fun? What do you like? What are you into? Yada yada yada. She reveals she's in a wheelchair. He's fine with it. She's enthralled with that. And things begin
Because
progressing.
she wasn't used to being accepted.
Right.
The second he said he was okay with that, she was in love.
Yep. And things progressed very quickly for them. In a week's time, they were a couple.
Okay.
And not much.
Even though
known.
they never met each other. Oh, we're in love. We're gonna get married. Oh my God, we know we're gonna be for kids. Oh my God, I love her so much.
And that we're back to drawing so and so love so and so on our notebooks in school. And the whole first year of like their relationship, nothing strange, nothing weird happens until Gypsy says, Gypsy says a year into the relationship, she reveals to him that she can actually walk. And his response to this is, I'm not surprised. I have psychic abilities. I knew this.
No, he didn't. Sorry.
That was his
Woo.
yeah. That was
You know
his
what that is?
response to it.
That's my red flag.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. One more. Let's add one more red flag to
Okay.
that. He then proceeds to follow that up by telling her, I have multiple personality disorders. One of them, his name is Victor, and he's violent and evil.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Christian dating
Delete.
website, Pete.
Yeah.
So
I would
his
expect to find that on datesatan.com, not on Christian dating websites now.
and he's actually
Come
he
date
says
Victor. No, F off, Victor.
he says he's actually prescribed medication for it, but he was never formally diagnosed. The only thing he's actually ever diagnosed with is being neurodivergent with an autism spectrum disorder.
Okay.
And so, which part of it is his mind would always be around the 15 to 16-year-old age, and he becomes so transfixed on something
Mm-hmm.
that's one of his things that happens with his disorder. So that kind of scared Gypsy, but to combat that, she decided she's going to make up her own personality disorders to go along with his.
Oh, this is a match made in hell.
Oh yeah, she made one up called Kitty, who was
Okay.
very docile and sweet. She made one up named Candy, who,
Candy's a little whore.
not the little girl that you see in the wheelchair, is it?
No.
So Candy was the adventurous and vibrant one. And then she came up with Ruby. Ruby was the experienced, superior, and evil one.
Is that bitch licking a knife blade?
She is.
She is. Yeah.
And Ruby was made for Victor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did she? But she's just role playing. She didn't actually slip into different personalities. She's just doing. Okay.
Correct. She is role playing. She's matching his personalities with something.
Okay.
So, anyway, Dee Dee ends up locking her computer. She gets suspicious. She locks her computer, and Gypsy ends up stealing Dee Dee's phone. She creates a fake. Words are hard. Words are hard.
You got it.
A fake Facebook page called Emma Rose.
Okay.
And that's where things, when she does this, that's where the relationship took on a very sexual turn. Nick comes forward and he's like, hey, I'm into BDSM, which is a lot of bondage, slave, master, for those of y'all who don't know.
It involved latex and whips, and it is fabulous. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Or do I? You decide.
And it is a lot of fun.
Am I right or am I not?
Anyway. And at first, Gypsy was like, I want nothing to do with this. This is effing weird. And so,
I mean, because I can imagine she's like equating what he's into to like some of the abuse that her mother had, put onto her. But
well,
maybe not.
She comes forward and she's basically says later on that she was always taught that a woman's role was submissive and a man's role was dominant. So she ended up leaning into it, and kind of like, boy, did she ever.
It's like saying, and not saying that, I'm not likening BDSM to any sort of abuse. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Because
in her mind,
what adults do with each other is fun and safe. But in her mind,
Safe word is carrot.
No, my issue is the safe word is Worcestershire sauce, but nobody can ever freaking say it. Okay.
No.
Anyways,
but yeah, like in her mind, because her mom kept her tied to things and kept her strapped to stuff in order to keep her from doing things.
Right.
I wonder if she had sort of a conflict going on.
The difference would be that she had no choice in that.
Exactly. That's
but
right.
in this one, she did, which might have been why she was okay to play along with the idea.
Yeah.
Now, remember, they haven't actually met at this point yet.
Yeah.
This is all talkity talk. This is all over being cute, or being sexy.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, I'm so grown up, and I love you forever.
But she actually, and kind of answer your question a little bit. She ends up leaning into it a lot because she starts putting things on her private Facebook page. Of things like one of them is, it's right here. It says, "It's quote,
all pretend right now."
But this says, quote, I'm embracing my role and duties. I'm learning more about myself. I'm confident and fulfilled. I live and breathe to serve my master.
Okay.
So she started kind of trying to lean into it.
She's going into the role. Okay. Yeah.
And be
not necessarily the role, but she's
right.
That dynamic she's going into.
She's playing into the fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so she ends up receiving a message from one of his exes going, girl, he crazy, get out, run. He's into
We've all done that.
He's into the dominant submissive stuff. He believes he's a vampire. He crazy. And literally almost all of their relationship was online role play. I mean, that was basically all that it was. So until early of 2015, when they decide, hey, we're actually going to meet in person. So they hatch this plan that the new Cinderella movie is coming up, is being released. And they're Gypsy's going to go see it with her mother.
They're talking about BDSM, and yet let's go see Cinderella.
I know.
Perfect first date movie.
So Gypsy and her mother are going to go see this, and Gypsy and Nick secretly make a plan for him to meet her mom. Now, the issue was she couldn't flat out tell her mom, hey, I met this dude online. He's coming. She wasn't supposed to be online. She wasn't supposed to have boyfriend, all this stuff. So it's a little bit creepy that Nick just basically had to show up to this
It was
movie.
Supposed to be a chance meeting.
Correct.
And they fall in love, and her mother would see that, and the world would be right.
Yeah, it didn't go over as planned. Dee Dee actually did not like Nick. She said that he gave her the creeps and he was dangerous. She ended up moving seats. But they had already made a plan that you're going to meet my mom and we're going to have sex. That's how this is going down.
She had decided she was going to lose her virginity that day.
Yep. And
they had discussed it.
Yep. In detail, basically. And she excuses herself from the movie. She goes out towards the lobby. He follows her. How the mother didn't get up and follow her, I don't know. But anyways.
Yeah.
He follows her, and Gypsy ends up just taking him into a men's restroom, and they end up having sex. And she's like, it's not what you think it is. She was like, I thought it was going to be flowers and wine and roses and candy and great and all that. She was like, no, it was none of that shit. Basically, she's like, it's
the
horrible.
Bathroom of the movie theater.
Yep. So they end up coming back out, and right at the time that Dee Dee's coming to the concession stand, and she's
they've
like,
been gone a few minutes.
And she's like, why are you still hanging out with him? Yeah. He's creepy, blah, blah, blah. So she ends up taking Gypsy to the bathroom. They get into it. She ends up slapping Gypsy, which devastated her in this moment because she just had, in her mind, a good night. Chance meeting with her true lover. And that was the moment, she says in multiple interviews, that everything changed for her because she knew in that moment her mother was never going to let her have the normal life with love, friends, kids, marriage, all of that stuff. And that literally in that moment was when she became desperate and afraid and began figuring out how she could get the life she wanted. And they ended up hatching, her and Nick ended up starting to hatch this plan that they called Plan B.
How original.
Yeah, I know. And so
Plan A didn't work. They were supposed to meet and fall happily in love, and Mama was supposed to love him. So yeah, this was Plan B.
Plan B. And so they start looking into, well, first off, they figure out the only way that they're going to be able to have a life together is that if Dee Dee's not in the picture, she's got to be gone from the equation if they're going to have a life together. Mm-hmm. So they start looking at things like cyanide and different poisons and arsons and house fires and how to set all that up. They look into a gun for Gypsy, but she's like, I can't kill it. I can't kill my mom, And one of the conversations
still all fantasy.
Yeah.
It's just talk.
And one of the conversations that ended up taking place was Nick said, I would do anything for you. Gypsy, anything? Nick, anything. Gypsy, from anyone? Nick, yes. Gypsy, even my mom? Nick, yes. How badly do you want to be with me? And she says, are you ready? Like an always, Huns. He says, what do you mean for? Or what do you mean, dear? She says, for me. He said, I would do anything for you. She says, as long as my mom is alive, I can't be with you. And Nick said Gypsy made that very clear. And he said, are you serious? She said, this is not anything to joke around about. This is the only way we can be together. This is the actual conversation that was taking place.
And that's the text conversation that you're reading.
Yeah, this is the text conversation
or
that
messenger
they had.
Conversation, yeah.
Yeah, one of the two. Messages that were exchanged between them. Nick said at that point, he was pretty much stuck in this situation because of his love for Gypsy. And he ends up kind of just going along with it. He says, he messaged her back. He says, well, if you can't do it, then who will? She responds, you. This is probably the most effed up sentence that she sends. She says, if you truly love me, you will be willing to do this for me because you know this is the only way that we can be together. Now, Nick comes back and he says, well, it's not me that's going to be doing it. You got to talk to Victor. Victor will be the one that does it. You need to ask Victor. And he had mentioned that he was good with knives. Gypsy said, as long as she doesn't suffer, she still is my mom. But she texts back. She's like, Victor, these are the exact words. Victor, will you please come kill my mother for me because I can't do it myself? Yeah. By the way, this is Nick and Gypsy at that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, when she's dressed in a tiara and everything.
She was dressed like Cinderella.
She was dressed like Cinderella.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
I just, why was death the first option? Because we know she gets up in the middle of the night and gets on the computer. They could have.
That wasn't the first option. They thought about cyanide and poisoning and burning the house down.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that all of those could be escaped from.
What I'm saying is we know she gets up in the middle of the night. Her mom obviously sleeps really hard. She could have got up and walked out the front door and left.
Yeah,
her mother would have found her. She'd already done that.
She'd already been found.
Falsified documents and brought her back.
Yeah.
This woman had proven that child was never going to escape her clutches.
True.
She was trying to have mental paperwork drawn up to make her appear to be mentally unstable.
Yeah.
Yep.
And therefore that she would legally constantly be underneath her care. There was really no other escape for that child from that mother. The mother was never going to allow it. And that wasn't first choice. That was only choice.
In her mind, for sure.
Yeah.
But she said that when all this planning was going on, she truly thought they never were going to get caught.
It was all fantasy.
She felt like this was like her fairy tale. She was going to be rescued. And as she put it, just like Rapunzel, which is her favorite Disney princess, who's locked in the tower by an evil foster mother, who ends up falling to her death in the end. # spoiler alert. And she just knew she was going to run away with Nick to Wisconsin. And they were going to begin this life together. I mean, that was her thing about
Rescued by Prince Charming.
Yeah.
Who slayed the dragon for her.
So they start moving more along with this Victor's going to kill her mother mentality. And June 8th of 2015, Dee Dee and Gypsy get into an argument over her feeding tube and an upcoming surgery. And she basically says, I don't want this feeding tube anymore. I don't want this surgery. Can we just forget it? And Dee Dee's like, no. And you have to have surgery because the doctor says so. And she said that's the exact moment when she became numb to Plan B. She didn't care anymore. She became so freaking numb to it.
Mama was planning another surgery.
Yeah. And
Mama already had one on the books.
And Gypsy texts Nick and says, I'm 100% in, hun. I'm truly ready. And he texts back, okay, hun. And literally jumps on a bus that night, I believe, and heads to Springfield. And she messaged him on his way, and she's like, tomorrow is the last night that we sleep alone. This is it,
Yeah.
So we get to June 10th, 2015. Nick's now in Springfield, and he begins texting Gypsy a little bit more. And he's starting to ask these questions about, the house and her mother. Is she a light or deep sleeper? She tells him she sleeps on her stomach, but she's a light sleeper. The door's going to squeak, so you got to open it up just enough to get in and close it gently. I'm going to leave gloves outside for you. I'll hand you the knife. And it's like all this planning is going on, and she literally says 2 lines. I'll hand you the knife and duct tape inside, darling. I'm doing my nails, too. I'm painting them dark pink. She's just
so nonchalant about it.
Yeah, absolutely nonchalant about it.
And we're going to go to McDonald's, and I'm going to get my nails done, and then we're going to kill her, and then we're going to go ahead and, you want ice cream? Ice cream sounds real good. Can we go get ice cream? That was pretty much the course of the conversation.
Yeah. And so that night, they are doing their nails. They've started to make up from the argument that they had 2 days ago, but Gypsy ends up hurting Dee Dee's feelings, and Dee Dee she goes to bed early. Her feelings are hurt. Dee Dee tells her, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a good girl from now on. And Dee Dee turns around and literally her last words to her are, I'm starting to feel more relaxed. Don't hurt me.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Those were the last words that Dee Dee ever said.
Again, but that was a guilt trip. But don't hurt my
It
feelings.
was.
Don't, that was meant to make Gypsy feel guilty.
Yeah.
It was.
So Nick shows up. Dee Dee's in bed. The gloves are outside. He slips them on. And he walks into the house. And he said, at this moment, he had two thoughts pop in his head. Take her and run, talking about Gypsy. Or the bitch is dead because she, talking about Dee Dee, is not going to get between me and her. He says once he walked inside and he took that very first step inside the door, he knew that there was absolutely no turning back, that he was going to go through with it. Gypsy hands him the knife. He's got the gloves on already. He's dressed in a hoodie, dark clothing. She said like a clown t-shirt that actually scared the hell out of her. Just kind of, he was dressed as Victor, in my opinion,
Yeah.
She hands him the knife and he says, get your ass to the bathroom now. And she goes. She walks into the bathroom, or she goes into the bathroom. She turns on the water and kneels on the floor and covers her ears. And she doesn't want to hear anything.
I believe he tells her, don't come out.
Well,
don't come out.
Yeah. So she covers her ear because she don't want to hear anything, but she actually ends up hearing everything.
Oh, God.
Her mother is, the way she describes it, this is going to get kind of graphic here for a little bit, y'all. But anyways, the way she describes it, she's kneeling on the floor with her hands over her ears. She hears her mother startle awake. She calls Gypsy's name twice. She hears her mother begin to scream and scream and scream. Calls her name 2 more times. And then complete silence. And the house just goes silent. And Gypsy's sitting there with her hands over her ears. And she's afraid to move. She said that she's so nauseous. She was afraid to get up. But in that moment when she could hear her mother's screams, she did not want it to happen anymore. She wanted it to stop. But she could not get up because she was too afraid of what she would see, of what would happen. And she was actually told by Nick that if you try to intervene, Victor may lash out at you as well. He may hurt you in the moment. And I don't want that. So you need to stay where you're at. And she also says that you think you know what a murder sounds like because of horror movies and stuff like that. And she's like, no, it's completely different.
And it's much, much worse.
It's much worse. Yeah. And Victor had mentioned something to Gypsy that after he killed Dee Dee, he was going to sexually assault Dee Dee's body at that point. Gypsy made a plea with him and said, please don't. Please do that to me instead of my mother. I will allow that to happen to me if you just do not do it to my mother. Mm-hmm. And he agreed. And so Victor comes back into the bathroom. He's cut his finger. He asks Gypsy to clean up his finger, clean up the small drops of blood in the bathroom in the hallway. She does, bandages him up. They go into Gypsy's room with her mother's dead body in the next room, and they end up having sex, which Gypsy says was not consensual. She actually asked him to stop. He would bite her. He would grab her very tightly. He would not stop. They pack after they get done, they pack a few things into a suitcase for Gypsy, go into the bedroom, take about $4,000 out of Dee Dee's room, and they head back to the hotel room where Nick was staying. And that's where the videos pick up in the hotel room of them laying in bed. And they're laughing and giggling, and it's very sexual and all this kind of stuff. And it's like they don't have any fucking remorse for whatever just took place until they're about to go to bed. And Gypsy's like, I couldn't sleep, so I took a bunch of pills, fell asleep just to drown out my remorse, my cares, and my fears. And she slept peacefully, as she put it, because she was free. That's the way she put it. She was a caged blue bird that had finally been set free. Those are her exact words. And she knew that her mother needed to be found, and she wanted to do something alarming to get people's attention. And she herself was the one that authored the post of "The bitch is dead," and the one that put, "I slashed that fat pig, blah, 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 blah." So it was Gypsy herself who did that. So, of course, back to the beginning of the story, we've come full circle.
That's where we came in.
They're picked up at Nick's parents' house. They're taken to the nearest police station. They are questioned. Nick admits to everything right out. All of it. Dee Dee again is stabbed 17 times in her bed. She slashed across the back of her throat. Nick is responsible for all of it. And Gypsy denies involvement on everything in the beginning.
She acts as if she does not know her mother is deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Can we finally talk about this shit?
Well, she's been taught to lie.
She has been taught to lie. And there was a couple of things. This is like a little kind of conclusion part. Then, yes, you can bash the bitch. Looking back on it, people always wondered, how the hell did nobody understand what the hell was happening? And a lot of times when they went to the doctors, Gypsy said she was handed a stuffed animal. Her mother would hold her hand. When she would speak too much, her mother would squeeze her hand. She knew that was her moment to shut the hell up, zip it, sit there and play with your stuffed animal. You know, everything she had told her were a lie. There were never any medical records that ever existed. And when the family actually finally figured out what had happened, most of them were like, she finally did it. She killed the bitch. Like, I knew she would. Her own father is quoted as saying her brother and sisters didn't care anymore about Dee Dee. When Gypsy got her ashes back from her mother's cremation, she was asked, what do I do with these? To which Dee Dee's sister replied, flush them down the toilet. That's what you do.
Damn.
Yeah. And a lot of them are like, yeah, she got exactly what she deserved. Now, to wrap up this so that we can let Shelley bash a little bit.
I have worked really hard not to say anything.
You've done really good. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Gypsy ends up, about a year later, pleading guilty to a Class A felony of murder in the second degree for a lesser sentence. She ends up receiving a 10-year sentence with the possibility, she has to serve 85% of her sentence before she can be paroled.
She's eligible for parole in
2024
when she will be 32 years old.
Correct.
Wow.
And they amended her charge because they took into account the 2 decades worth of abuse that she received from the hands of her mother. Nick went on to go to trial, and he ended up getting life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years for the weapons charge. Now we
got talking about this last night.
Two last quotes real quick, and then we'll get into the bashing. One of the last interviews that Nick gives, he's quoted as saying, no matter what happens, I'm always going to love her unconditionally. No matter what happens, no matter if there's a break off, it doesn't matter what happens. I'm always going to love her unconditionally. Till this day, I still do love her. I do love her. And I know for a fact she still does love me. In an interview around the same time with Gypsy, she's quoted as saying, now that I've grown and matured, I know the difference between love and infatuation. He wants to feel whatever he wants to feel, but I don't love him no more. And she does end up finishing that interview by saying, I have a lot of complicated emotions for my mother. There are some times that I'm angry at her. There are times I think she was so manipulative, and how could you do that to your child? And I think there are other times that I think she was so desperate for somebody to love her. But regardless of all of that, I still love her and still miss her. She was my mother. Shelley, you may begin.
To quote
Open
Roxy
discussion.
Hart from Chicago, she had it coming. First of all, here we go. Just everybody buckle up. First of all,
I had to adjust myself real quick.
I'm
so
telling
here we
you,
go.
yeah, get adjusted. You guys know we were talking about this. That mother, the only way that child was going to escape was for that mother to be dead. And I ain't about matricide. I'm not preaching that in any way, shape, or form. But here's the thing: that mother, every time she put that child underneath an unnecessary surgery, underneath anesthesia, she was putting that child's life at risk. She was playing with that child's life and did not care the outcome. If the child died, oh, then here I am, the mother who's lost their child. I'm forever pitied and have sympathy. And if the child recovers, oh, look, I'm such a wonderful mother. Okay. Was it a mental illness? Oh, definitely. That bitch was crazy. The fact that she isolated that child from everyone, kept her from friends. Gypsy wasn't allowed to have friends, was not allowed to have friends. She isolated her from friends, from family. There were very few family members who could ever watch her. And that's talked about in numerous documentaries. She wouldn't let anybody keep her, not for very long. Because guess what? What if she stood up and walked? What if she talked? What if she formed a relationship that she felt that she could trust someone else? The secret might be out. The jig might be up. This woman used that child to con her way into everything from houses to trips to cars to money to favor to sympathy. She got so many things. She used that child. She abused that child. Like I said, she had it coming. And that may be an unpopular opinion, but that is not a mother's role. By the way, happy Mother's Day, belated to all of our mothers. To all of you good ones out there, thank you. Because we just showed you what a really bad one looks like.
Yep.
That is a very bad mother. Now, damn it, I have this much sympathy for Dee Dee Blanchard. I told you guys this. It pissed me off. I have a modicum of sympathy for her.
Yeah. I want to know what this is because you mentioned it, but you didn't tell us.
Yeah, you said you found something out, but we didn't.
And I'm not happy about it. I do have a modicum of sympathy for her. Because how do you know what is the right thing to do when the only thing that's ever been modeled to you has been you yourself have been abused. You yourself have been put through things unnecessarily. You've been told you're sick and can't do things. And that is what you were taught. And you were taught that in order to get what you wanted and get what you needed, or get what you wanted for your family. That was modeled to her. And that is the only modicum of sympathy I would have for her, is if you weren't taught correctly and you weren't taught, you weren't nurtured correctly. That wasn't nature. Children aren't born like that. People, I mean, now, again, there's the occasional bad seed. I don't think she was a bad seed. None of her other brothers and sisters were bad seeds. All of them were perfectly normal, happy, healthy people that did not do that. It was only her. And abusers tend to pick in families. They tend to pick who they're going to pick on, who's the favorite, and who is the victim. Unfortunately, Dee Dee Blanchard was both in her family. She was the favorite and the victim. So that cyclical modeled behavior of abuse, she passed along and did to her child. Now, what terrifies the hell out of me is when Gypsy Rose gets out of jail, because she will get out of jail in 2024. What terrifies me is whenever she becomes a mother. This is one of those times when I am all for sterilization before release. Because do you think that cycle will continue? Absolutely, because she has been modeled the exact same behavior. But I will tell you this, that kid was never going to be free as long as that mother was alive. And come at me, bro. So,
I will tell you right now that as you were preaching about the mother getting what she deserved, our comments were blowing up, but they were all in agreement with you.
Thank
however,
you. I know our listeners and watchers were brilliant.
However, I'm going to debate you on one topic, and that is when Gypsy gets out. I think that when it comes to something that is along that lines of what she experienced for most of her life that is so traumatizing to her, yes, it is an issue of getting through it with the help of mental health services in order to know what is right and wrong, and being taught what is right and wrong in different situations throughout life. But I think when a child experiences something that is so traumatic along that lines, that when they get older, that they are so absolutely 100% adamant that that is never going to happen to their child, I think that a generational cycle can be broken.
You know what I say to that? Ask John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other instances.
Abuse
things
comes out, he becomes a serial killer.
I mean, I don't know. I
had that one ready for you, Blake. I told you I'd have an answer to anything you threw at me.
I mean, I agree with you that I am pretty scared about her becoming a mother if she decides to do so when she gets out. So I'm actually going to be devil's advocate here because I do agree with you. But I can say, she had a paragon of someone not to be like. She figured out the abuse. She knew what was happening. So she may have learned from that, obviously learned from her mistake, hopefully, but also learned from the way her mother treated her growing up and her finding out about all the lies and realizing that her mother was sick that
Mhm.
maybe she can break that cycle. She can break that cycle and move on down the line somewhere.
And how did she escape? By lying, by manipulating,
She did.
by doing whatever she had to do to get what she wanted.
She did, and that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. However, on one
And
hand,
most
I can see
criminals
the
going
other
into
side.
prison don't come out better people at the end of it.
Not
That's
necessarily, no.
extremely rare. Extremely rare. Some people do. And if you're one of those ones that have come out a better person, God bless you, because that is rare and few and far between. Most criminals will tell you once they went to big jail, they came out better criminals. So what's going to happen? She is a felon. What is she going to do for a job? Do you think that any of aunties and uncles want them to come live with her? Oh, hell no. What if you decide you're mad at me? No, thank you.
But I think
she
hold on,
can't work, I don't think.
But I think
Why not? She's not sick no more. She's healed.
I know, but here's my thing. I think what you're looking at is completely just with tunnel vision. I think that this is.
I'm looking at the statistics and the reality of remuneration.
I understand that. I mean,
and recidivism.
I do, but I think that you're looking at the statistics just as a little bit. Words are hard.
The numbers.
Yes, the numbers of different circumstances of what she has faced. We're talking about one of I think like maybe two most well-documented cases of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. I mean, we're not talking about John Wayne Gacy or a serial killer that has chopped up people and killed people because
systematic abuse over a long period of time that creates deep psychological gouges in your brain and during your formative years, which fucks you up.
I understand that. I'm not saying that I don't disagree with you on that part. I just think that
Ryan's like, never mind, I'm gonna stay out of this.
I get the popcorn now. I'm gonna sit here and just listen.
I think what it is that you're walking down the exact same path. And don't get me wrong, I know that you're all about true crime. You know a lot about true crime. I'm quickly catching up. I will say that you are a lot more knowledgeable on the subject than I am. There are periods of ones that I know about, but I just think that it's one path that you're looking at. It's not necessarily looking down this path over here, because this is not, yes, it is the abuse. Yes, it is. It has all the same characteristics of the past that other serial killers and stuff like, and people like that have walked, or habitual, criminals have walked. But this is a one-off circumstance. You see what I'm saying? It's not like she has repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. She made this choice and did what she did because she felt like she absolutely had no out whatsoever. And therefore, I feel that she's not going back to that situation, back to the abuse, back to the cage, back to all this stuff. That I don't know. I think that this is a different case because we really don't know. There's not many people who have come out of prison that have been in her exact situation that we have seen the outcome of. Now, I will go with you that we have seen hardened criminals come out that are habitual criminals that repeat over and over and over again. But I think this is, in my opinion, I think that they're different. That's where I'm at.
Let me shoot you down.
Okay, go for it.
So you said she's not coming out. She's not going to be back in the cage until she gets married. And her picker is not going to work because obviously it don't work right now. What happens when she feels backed into a corner and now the guy she's with may not treat her very well. And now she has to get out. What the hell is she going to do then? Gosh, she's back into that same corner. Well, how did I get out of that corner before? I know. And so do you. You can't say that she won't ever be in the same circumstance and that her outcome will not be the same. Now, I hope she walks out and she gets the therapy she needs and gets everything she needs to do, and she can walk out and walk that straight and narrow path and have the life that she always wanted. But statistically, that is not going to happen. Statistically, the chances of her beating the odds.
Oh, I think the odds are against her. Don't get me
minuscule.
wrong. I do. But I think that it's I know Ryan's enjoying his snack of popcorn over here. Mm-hmm. But I think it is a difference in a case that you have to take. You're
saying that the case is different only because we don't know what the future is, but based on past, based that she does manipulate to get what she wants, because that is what she was taught. Ryan's got his chips now.
Ryan's actually got.
Brian actually brought a snack to this. Ryan knew that we were going to discuss this, but again, put her, because every person that has been in a bad relationship or a bad situation at some point or another has that fight or flight reaction. Now, you put whatever that reaction is normally what it always is. Okay. That is normally the first instinct. Now, in that situation where it was kill her mother or just run away and disappear, it was kill her mother. If she gets put into a situation again where she feels trapped, that instinctual id, that part of your brain, your lizard brain is running, like say your lizard brain is going to go to what you know, and that is your nature, and nature does not change. Choices can change. Your first instincts do not. Now you can fight those instincts, you can talk them through, but she is not proven to have that kind of capability to reason in the moment.
That's what I was going to say. I agree that she is. There's victims all around in this. Mm-hmm. Dee Dee's a victim. Gypsy's a victim. Nick's a victim. Even. I mean,
Nick is a victim too, because he should not be in. He should not be in big jail. He should be in jail for criminally insane, getting help. And if he's really having an undiagnosed schizophrenic or multiple personality disorder, I'm not exactly sure. All the medical terminologies keep changing, but he should be somewhere where he can receive help too. But he isn't, because he's the actual perpetrator of the crime.
Right.
She's the mastermind, though.
Right.
She's the thinking one. So she's not dumb. She lives in a fantasy world, but that fantasy world, she's not Snow White. She's the Wicked Queen.
I'm with you, fellers.
Come at me, bro.
Agree to disagree. I think that, just as you say, I can't predict future outcomes, I don't think you can predict future outcomes
I cannot.
in this case. So I think
can only go with the numbers.
The numbers, don't get me wrong, like I just said a while ago, I think the odds are against her. The numbers are there to support it. But I think that this is a completely different scenario, even though there is the abuse and all. It's not a John Wayne Gacy, a Dean Corll, anything like that.
Yet.
I get that a lot of the same symptoms are there, so to speak, but it was a different scenario for her in the moment to make the choice that she made. That's where I'm leaving. Now, I don't think.
How is it different? There was planning involved. There were things purchased. There was multiple decisions made as to how to go about something. They picked their victim. They stalked their victim. They made plans for their victim. They got their weaponry. They placed it. And then they executed the plan and the victim. Not much different than a serial killer does. Only difference is she only got one murder under her belt.
But they also were not completely fearful of the person that they killed and trapped and backed into a corner of 2 decades worth of habitual abuse at the hands of somebody who is supposed to love them. That's your difference.
Actually, I would go with you on that if it would have been a rage killing and she actually would have been fighting back against her abuser. But that is not the case. She got someone to do it for her. Come at me, bro.
But
it's
one of those things that she says over and over and over and over again. I can't do it. I can't actually be the one, quote unquote, or not quote unquote.
Maybe she couldn't.
To pull the trigger, so to speak. I can't be the one to pull the triggers. I understand that, but I get that part of it. I get that part of it. I mean, I understand that she's a liar, but she, in her mind, it's just, if I was in that instance, I don't think that I could. I don't think I could be the one to pull the trigger either, but that is just me as a person. I'm not in her shoes. I'm glad I was never in her shoes. I've never experienced what she experienced, but I can honestly say right now, here and now, as a person, I can't ever kill anybody else. I mean, I can't pull that trigger. I can't do that. So if I was in her situation, I feel like, being the person that I am, I would probably get somebody else to do it. Because allegedly. I myself can't do it, allegedly. And well, we're talking about putting me in her shoes.
Yeah, there you go. We're putting you in her shoes.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there's just a lot of different things that come into play. Would you provide the murder weapon?
Would you be able to provide the murder weapon?
I think if it got me out of the situation, the habitual abuse that I was in, and I was tired of it for 2 freaking decades, I think I would do anything that I needed to do to get out of that situation, except actually pull the trigger. So would I provide the murder weapon? Probably. Would I provide the gloves? Probably. Would I set it all up and mastermind it if somebody else would take the fall for it? Absolutely.
You heard it here first.
Ryan, you want to weigh in on this?
I just think that I think she's still a very unwell person, and when she gets out of jail, because she is
Have your pet
unwell,
spayed or neutered.
because she is unwell, she may express
Wait a minute, we gotta
herself.
wait for Blake to get back.
Because she is unwell, she may express herself in a very unhealthy manner at some point in her life, and it might not be a good thing. I mean, well, obviously, but like it could be potentially bad or worse than what happened. I don't know.
I
just think
sincerely hope that she gets what she needs, that she has all the assistance she can possibly have. I hope that she gets the counseling she needs, and I hope that she gets the life that she should have had.
Paula's all for you reaching out to her, Ryan.
No.
What? Can you read
No,
that
thank you.
comment, please? Because
Paula said, I can be screwed, but I'm all for Ryan reaching out to her.
Ryan, I
No.
think you should reach out to Gypsy.
No, I'm good.
Point blank,
I'm all
point
right.
blank. I think that to sum it all up, murder is murder.
Mhm.
Point blank
And
simple.
murder is wrong.
And murder is wrong. Point blank and simple, no matter
But
what
some
the
people,
situation. I think
you
Gypsy,
don't, you understand.
I think Gypsy got exactly what she needed to happen to her. She received 10 years because they took into account all the two decades worth of abuse that she endured. I do not believe that Nick got what he deserved. I think that he should have a lesser sentence.
He was manipulated.
And B's absolutely 100%.
He had a mental deficiency.
But
and
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
abuse is abuse and murder is murder, and neither are right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we can sit here and 100% predict what's going to happen when she comes out or when she has a child or when she gets married, because we don't know. This is a very one-off case. We have the numbers. We have the evidence there to prove that she may be a habitual criminal or habitual felon. Yes, it's all there just because of looking of other true crime cases. But again, hers is extraordinary circumstances, so to speak, in my opinion. And I don't think that it can be 100% paved out for her. That's where I'll leave it.
I think that she, like I said, I think that she's still unwell, and I think that from learning from her mother, she may still be a master manipulator. So I think that maybe I would just say that maybe she needs to be monitored as she gets out, to check in with her to see how she is functioning mentally. And maybe through, like we were saying, through lots of therapy and through lots of workshopping and through lots of other things, she might turn out to be a productive member of society. But
we just had a good comment. Sorry, finish your thought.
But based on the track record and based on where she came from and what happened before now, I don't think this is the last we will hear about her. Me personally.
Fair. Let me throw in this comment. Let me throw in this comment, and it's a two-parter. And Shelley, we'll let you have the final words. It says, "I think the fact that she couldn't do it herself shows empathy. That separates from basically being a psychopath, so to speak."
Brian, you shook your head. You go ahead so that I don't have to be the asshole on this one.
I
play nice. This is the comment.
We are playing nice. We are playing nice.
We are.
I tend to go at those comments like I go at you guys, and I know that we all don't take any offense to it.
We don't take any offense to what y'all say. Y'all don't take anything offense to what we say. But if you throw a comment up, know that there's a chance it could be debated. So
I don't necessarily think she had empathy. I think she felt bad because she knew she had done something wrong, but I don't think she empathized with her mother in any way. I think she's like, that's my abuser. This is the person who has done this to me my entire life. Whatever.
She says herself that she went numb, that she did not care.
But she also says herself that please don't let her suffer because she still is my mother.
I think she felt bound by societal norms as far as that goes.
I agree. There were certain things that she was taught. What do you say? You say, I'm fine. What do you say? You're only human and you hold someone's hand. Mm-hmm. She was taught to be empathetic in the moments that she needed to be.
That's a good point. And
so therefore, I think that having that camera on her, whenever she was being interviewed, because I know exactly the interview you're talking about. And she goes, I do love her. She was my mother. And then you get the sad eyes, and then those sad little wonky eyes, just
You know,
looking
and I
at
also
you.
I also think plausible deniability on her half, like just yeah, we did it, but she
Okay,
was still my
what
mother, so I did
everybody
feel some sort of modicum of
what
empathy for
everybody
her.
is assuming is that because her mother always said that she had developmental
Mhm.
difficulties and there were issues. No. This girl was not dumb.
Yeah.
Don't let what the mother said influence the person she actually is, because what she was a very smart child who was able to help perpetrate a hoax that lasted almost 2 decades and never once said, "This isn't the truth." She was taught to lie and continued to perpetrate the hoax. Now, for 20 years, you're telling me at one point you didn't actually jump up in front of one of your friends whenever those few play dates you got? What about at Disney World where you saw Mickey Mouse? Yeah, Mama's right there. What if, there were multiple times that all she had to do was stand up?
She was extremely fearful of her mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she says that she wouldn't do it.
Again, you're going to Disney World. Do you want to go or not? Don't you get your ass out of that chair. Okay.
Yeah.
A 20-year hoax that was perpetrated. It took 2 people to do it. One by manipulation, fair enough. One was a puppet, one was a puppeteer. But that was a puppet who could have cut its strings, and it didn't.
3 other points that were made. We're gonna and we'll wrap this up because we can keep the comments coming all night.
We talked for like
keep
4
going
hours
all
last
night.
night.
However, I
You
will
got the
say,
condensed version.
I know, I will say that Paula put up, I think the fact she couldn't do it is not a factor. Why should I do it if I can get somebody else to do it?
Yep.
I can't be blamed if I didn't do it, and it worked. That's one
right.
comment basically that came. Another one came up. Said, we can say what we want, but we didn't go through any of this abuse. Treatment like what she endured could cause you to lose it. And the last comment that came up that said, when you're abused by someone who's supposed to love you, it alters your reality. You hate and love the same person. Love the same person.
I don't disagree with any of that.
I can definitely agree with that.
Yep.
And Paula says I should have been Norman Bates's lawyer. But anyways, so we can continue the conversation with y'all through comments and messages and stuff like that. We would absolutely love to. I mean, if we could stay on here all night long for 8 hours long discussing it with y'all.
Conversation over this last night, and we still had another 2 hours today.
Yeah, we absolutely would do that. So I mean, who knows? Maybe this is a good little open discussion forum between us and our viewers and listeners. So please continue to comment. We will answer each and every comment that
be careful.
we
comment back.
We do. We comment back. We are not afraid to comment back.
And it's always a debate.
Yes, it's always a debate
because
we don't agree in arguments or agree to argue because people, as Shelley says, leave with their feelings hurt. We like to debate. So
yeah.
Well, y'all, we thank y'all for joining us for the 28th episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. We hope that y'all enjoyed our debates for the last 30 minutes and this wonderfully detailed episode that we gave you over Dee Dee and Gypsy Blanchard. I just completely blanked on what I was going to say. My bad. You were
going to tell them that in Longview, that tickets are on sale for the Longview Museum.
I was going to first off tell them that wherever you're watching us from, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, remember we're across all social media pages. So go and follow us all across everything that we're on. We're on pretty much any social media page that you could think of, and we don't use them all for the same reason. So you're not going to get everything on one page. So make sure you're following us across the board. And also, if you'd like to join us for the Longview or the Gregg County Historical Museum Ghost Hunt in Longview, Texas. That is coming up. We only have about a month left. I think it is on June the 11th from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Words are hard. And those tickets are on sale. We will repost the link either tonight or tomorrow, so that it'll be at the top of our Facebook page so you can easily find it. If you'd like to buy a ticket, click on the link. I think we have just a handful of them left, and they're $70
Not many.
For a 7-hour ghost hunt, and it is a really fun place to be.
It's a good time.
And if you want to know what we talk about when we're not on the show, you should sign up and become a Patreon member. $5 a month, we don't make you do all these different tiers. We have to pay all different stuff. $5 a month, you get everything. You get Spirits Shelley, Bedtime with Blake, and of course Ryan's reviews. Now we may have to put a few more things in there. And again, if you want to really know what we talk about, go become a Patreon member. If you want to find out how my hamster died, go become a Patreon member.
Even better, if you want to see what Shelley saw with her own eyes in the sky and caught on camera, go become
that was on last
Patreon
night's
member.
Yeah, that was on tonight's Patreon.
That was on tonight's Patreon. That will be live on Patreon tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, May the 11th. It'll be live on Patreon.
And
again,
tell
$5.
them how they can boost our signal, Ryan.
Yeah, go on Spotify. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Music. Rate and review us. I want to see this week. I want to see a new review on Apple Music. Somebody make it happen. Please, please, please. That way it boosts our signal.
You can put on there, Shelley, that bitch is crazy. That's fine.
Absolutely.
You know, so
Absolutely. I have no problem.
I do go check. I check every week. So please, please, please boost our signal. Because the more people see us, the more people, the more we can bring you. And just tell 2 friends about us and have those friends tell 2 friends and continue to grow us.
And
also, go ahead, Blake.
I was going to say, and also if you do become a Patreon member, be on the lookout. We're going to be getting merch pretty soon.
Merch is coming.
Blake, I was going to ask you, is the Longview, not Longview, but is Old Park?
Old Park tickets are on sale as well. That is going to be October the 7th and the 8th. It is the one and only time that I think I've ever seen a 2-night investigation offered in the state of Texas. Old Park is one of our favorite places to investigate. We've gotten some of our best pieces of evidence there. It is in Ballinger, Texas. That is towards San Angelo. It's in
October.
And it's in October, just in time for Halloween, October 7th and 8th. Those tickets are also on sale, which we will post the link for that
and there
as
are
well.
10 people. We're
10,
only taking 10 people. After 10, we have no more friends. Don't call us. Don't ask us. We don't have any more tickets. And you will not get a ghost hunt in October if you don't buy them now, just so you know. They will all be sold out. They
will all sell out very quickly.
And that one is so worth it, y'all. Like that. I can't gush about enough.
We actually only have 7 tickets left, by the way.
Oh,
so okay, that's right. Because somebody already scooped up 3 of them right off the bat.
Yep, right off the bat, somebody already scooped up 3 of them. So, anyways,
and we're still 3 months out.
Exactly. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. Again, my name is Blake Smith. For my friends, Miss Shelley Pruitt, Mr. Ryan Roberts, we thank y'all for joining us. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye, y'all.
Bye.